I would really encourage parents to think about your child's emotional health, their social health, their mental health, so they can go back to being kids and thrive.
You're listening to the Laughing Couple podcast with your hosts, Brittany and Ryan Ostafy. Join them weekly as they discuss topics such as relationships, kids, sex, parenting, all unfiltered and all with a healthy dose of laughter. Please welcome your hosts, Brittany and Ryan Ostafy.
Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good.
We have a very needed episode as we go to the most wonderful time of the year, aka the kids going back to school. It's not Christmas. We have an expert here today. Hi, Helen.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to get a chance to talk.
Yes.
Not as excited as we are.
Yes.
I can promise you that. With school here.
I know.
I guess when this episode launches, it will be today.
Yeah.
So welcome back to school, Mom and Dad. Congratulations. You made it through summer.
Exactly.
Great success. Great success.
Yes, it's like amazing. And then, oh my goodness, how do we deal with all the things that come with this big transition? So
I feel like August was like a snap. It was like the Sunday of the week. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of living in September and August. Anyway,
Yes.
Before we get into all of this, Helen, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you're about, so that our audience knows what they're going to get from this episode?
Absolutely. So I'm a child psychiatrist and with a specialty actually in focus on younger kids. So kids 0 to 6 is what my research is involved in, but also, kids before adolescence. And I was in academic medicine for 30 years.
Wow.
I was head of child psychiatry at Duke University, then chair of psychiatry at NYU in New York, and left, as I said, my endowed chair and tenure a year and a little bit ago to work full time at Little Otter, which is a company I founded with my daughter, which is the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
And at Little Otter, we provide family-centered mental health care for kids 0 to 14 years old, but their entire family. So we, do therapy, we do psychiatry, but we also are there to help parents answer the question, when should I worry, right? Mm-hmm. My kid's having a tantrum or my child is afraid of starting school. Is this something that's typical or is this something that might be a sign of some other problem?
Mm-hmm.
And there are telltale signs.
Oh, absolutely. That's the important thing. And, part of why I founded Little Otter is I know this need actually as a doctor, of course, but also as a mom.
Right.
I've got 4 children. My third child is identical twins. So that's how we have 4. And but my second child has a rare brain illness. And so he first got sick when he was 13. He's in his 20s. But Little Otter comes from my experience as a mom,
right,
in one, having the privilege to get my kid the help he needed because I was a doctor and I, could do that. But then despite my privilege, having the experience as a mom in the medical system and mm-hmm. how you can't get answers or people dismiss you. And so Little Otter really is like top quality mental health care and coming from the perspective that parents are the experts of their children, right? And our job as professionals is to be partners, right? Mm-hmm. To figure out together how we can support a child and a family. So it's really been an amazing opportunity to sort of leap beyond the walls of academia mm-hmm. and writing papers and all those great things to figure out how are we actually going to make a difference in families' lives? Because there's a desperate need right now.
Oh my gosh. We'll get into that. But
before we jump into, I know you want to go to the I love you and you're annoying. I want to acknowledge you for this because I think it's critical for, as an entrepreneur, we're 2 entrepreneurial people. We've both gone from corporate structured jobs with security to the independent world of create for yourself, jump out on the ledge and see if you can fly kind of thing. So I acknowledge you. I can't imagine the conversations that occurred before taking this leap to go from the position you are in into this other world solely based off of a calling. So congratulations.
Oh, I really
acknowledge that.
I really appreciate that, because I mean, it's totally scary and incredibly thrilling. It's the same mission my whole life has been, to help children and families. But I will say, I think, and I'm sure you all can respond to this as entrepreneurs, that I'd had this idea for a long time, but I'm a doctor and a scientist. And it wasn't until my daughter, who has an incredible background in tech and product, that I think I'm the person to make your vision a reality. So, just like your partnership, you can't just do it on your own, right? It's about building the right team and bringing together the right areas of expertise to make something new, right? That's so exciting. That's the challenge. Yeah.
It's also full of passion too, because it's like another baby, right? Like you have kids, but this is also another baby. You really nurture that, right? Okay, let's get into just something quick, just to give our audience just a little maybe different perspective on maybe your mothering side. Like we know you're a doctor, but I'd love to hear. You said you were married. You've been married for how long?
34 years.
Wow.
One of my favorite numbers, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I actually am really proud of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so you know that we do I Love You and You're Annoying. What is one thing about, actually let's do a two-parter. So we'll do one thing that is super annoying about your husband. It could be, you already know what you're going to say. You said,
yes,
I got it. And then maybe let's do one thing that you maybe find annoying or frustrating working with your daughter, because we work together and I love Ryan, but there are times where we're like, this is hard.
It sucks sometimes.
So let's hear it.
So in terms of my wonderful, amazing husband, he will never close a cabinet door.
Really?
So when I walk into the kitchen, every single door is open, drawer, and
we haven't got that one yet. No one said that.
So, well, what's interesting is this really early in our marriage became an issue, because I was like, I'm telling you over and over again, you must not love me because you won't close the drawers, because it clearly bothers me. And we went to marriage counseling, and the marriage counselor said, I think your husband has ADHD, which it turned out he did. So that really helped. I realized that, it wasn't just because he was trying to be unthoughtful. It was that now I will say he's gotten great treatment, but the doors still don't get but there are other things. Yes. There are other, it's gotten more organized in other ways. So.
I keep thinking about The Sixth Sense. The very beginning where all of the doors and the cupboards are open, where you're like, is there a ghost here, or what's happening? Why are they always open?
You can definitely see the footprint of where someone has been.
So Brittany's cabinet door equivalent is the lights. I know every room Brittany's ever been into.
It's not me, it's the kids.
Right. Yeah. Kids hang out in our closet in our bathroom all the time.
The kids follow me. That's the problem, right? And
just
so they turn them on.
Turning the lights on as you go. Yeah, I relate to that totally.
Maybe Brittany has ADHD and I just didn't know.
I don't, but maybe.
So what is it like working with your daughter? Well, let's just talk about the fun part of it. What's not fun about it?
First of all, it's amazing and fantastic. I mean, it's what an incredible gift, and we're incredibly aligned. And what we talk about is, and this is really true, we've done a lot of our own therapy and worked through a lot of things. So we're coming to it. We're not working out issues in ourselves or in our mother-daughter relationship. The other thing is, we have very clear roles. So I'm obviously the medical science leader of the company, and she's the technology product development. She's actually the CEO of the company, and I'm the chief medical officer. And I think that makes it really important. We're not overlapping with each other. But then I'd say the last thing, and I want to be really clear about this, is she's the CEO. And when, we've raised money, venture-backed money for this company, when people would ask, I would say, they would say, what would you do if there's a disagreement? And I said, ultimately she's the CEO and I will respect her decision. So I think that's, you have to really think through these things
for sure
ahead of time. And I mean, the best thing is she lived in San Francisco for 8 years, and she and her husband decided to move back to North Carolina where we live. So it's not just that we're doing the company, but we actually get to see each other.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's beautiful. Great.
Love
you know
that.
what? You said two things now, one pertaining to your husband and one pertaining to your daughter. And we always talk about the importance of this. And I know this has nothing to do with the podcast, so I'll expedite this conversation really quickly. But again, acknowledging the fact that you put in the work.
Yes.
Brittany and I put in the work. A lot of people ask, like, how do you guys get along so well? And how do you guys work through these issues?
We didn't always.
Because we've done the upfront work. So we're not carrying baggage into every single conversation. All of those things have become complete conversations for us. So we're always in new conversations that have new solutions. So
no, I think that's so important. And I think it's about the issues as a couple, which starts with dealing with your own stuff. Right? I mean, having a relationship begins with taking responsibility for yourself and doing the work so that you can come to another person and same for us in our marriage. I mean, we've done, counseling together when we've needed it, and you got to invest. You got to invest because there's going to be hard times, right?
Absolutely. So let's talk kids back to school. Well, what are you guys
literally
say? Do you want me to say I love you, but I'm annoying about my daughter?
Oh yes, let's hear it.
So I will say the one thing is when I raise my hand on Zoom in a Zoom meeting, she gets super annoyed with me because I don't always remember to make it go down again. So those are the one moments she'll be like slacking me, like, Mom, put your hand down. And I'm like, okay.
I honestly didn't even know that was like an option until like a couple months ago. I was like, why does he keep like putting it up? Okay, let's get into the
that would be me with my dad.
The goodness of this episode. It really revolves around kids' anxiety and stress about going back to school or going to school for the first time. So our listeners know, like, we have our son is 4. He's starting JK for the very first time, and our daughter is going into grade 3. So we've got 2 different kind of things happening. Riley is our daughter. She's very excited. She's a little nervous. And Cooper, I think he's just like, it is what it is. Like we've been fortunate enough that he's been in daycare and preschool during COVID. So like, it's not much of a change. But we have friends who kids weren't like that, and they're going into a new space. Right. So can you maybe speak just about the difference between like quote unquote normal or regular stress and maybe something a little bit more deeper, like severe anxiety?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we start with really what you were saying is it's a transition every year, right? Even if, for your daughter, she's been at school, but it may be a new class, a new teacher, new, friends to meet. And so it's totally normal for all kids and parents to have what I would call back to school jitters, right? There's kind of anticipatory anxiety, and maybe take a few days or a few weeks to get settled as what it was unfamiliar becomes familiar. And of course, when you're starting, school for the first time, or children in the US are moving to middle school or moving to high school, those can be even bigger transitions, right? Yeah. Because they may be different systems or different schools. So I think the first thing is to realize that is normal. And we know that it's normal when it kind of goes away once kids sort of are getting comfortable and you're getting comfortable. I do think that ways that we can help children with this transition is, if it's a new school, visit the school. Even if you can't go into the school and meet the teacher, go play on the playground, right? And then do sort of practicing, like getting the clothes set out the night before, making a lunch, walking to the bus stop, so that what you're doing there is, if you can, sort of practice these things so that it won't all be brand new on the first day of school.
So like a week before, maybe have those little routines, because summer is essentially routineless. That's what kids, they crave. They need a break, right? And then I think a lot of kids really thrive with some sort of...
Summer's a dumpster fire.
It is. It really is.
Right. And I think a really important thing, I mean, I know we're going to be, people will be hearing this conversation once school starts, but to sort of tuck away in your mind, getting back to the regular sleep schedule a few weeks before, so that you're kind of already establishing some of the routines of when bedtime is, when you're going to wake up, et cetera. Again, that gives sort of a foundation of practice when you go back, when you leave the dumpster fire.
Yes. I think that's hard.
Not dumpster fire.
In the summer, it's so light out. So our kids are like, I mean, we have blackout blinds, which is fine, but they're like, it's still light out. And we're like, I know, but it is getting earlier, quicker. However, I know that you want to tell that one story when you were little and you were like, I can hear them playing. It's light out.
I have that story hard. Too. I have that memory as a child too.
Yeah. Like it's not fair that you hear your friends and it's like sunny and you're like, I guess I'm going to bed. Like this sucks.
Yeah. What are you supposed to say to them? Well, son, some parents parent differently than us, and some parents are responsible and some parents aren't throwing them under the bus.
Parents like me know that this is really, your kid's like, I don't care, I want to play.
And then they're going to go in the next day and be like, Jimmy, my mom said that your parents aren't responsible because you're out like blah, blah, blah. But you know what like talking about routine. So I don't know how it is in the States, but the kids always go back to school like literally the Monday after Tuesday after Labor Day weekend. So this weekend coming up, I'm so happy this year. We've made it a point to stay here locally. Yes. We typically go up. Ryan's parents live a couple hours away. So we like to see the cousins and hang out. And that is so lovely. At the same time, the amount of stress that puts on like me and you personally, just like getting unpacked, getting sorted out. It's a lot. You just want to decompress. And I think that I'm just a little pat on the back this year because you were like routine and getting that schedule. I think that's so important.
You made a great decision, because I think also reducing the stress, and having, again, what's familiar, what's routine, not to be tired, kids thrive on having routine and knowing what to expect. That's why, for bedtime, it's so good not to be like, okay, now it's time for bed. Yeah. To give a warning. Well, we're going to be getting ready for bed. After that show, okay, then we're going to brush our teeth and get in our PJs, read a book. And if you do that in the same way, then that kind of primes children and it helps their nervous system go down, right? Because they're not wondering what's going to happen. Uncertainty makes us anxious, and knowing what's happening and not feeling surprised is what helps to reduce anxiety.
Now, speaking as someone who genuinely did not enjoy the school experience, hat in hand, when I really do the work and I do the looking, if I could go back to the time that I had to go into school, the real reason I didn't like school wasn't school. It wasn't my friends. It was a fear of being exposed for a lack of intelligence in a particular category that the school system tends to shine a light on, which is the reading and writing application process. And so being a 1984 baby myself, anxiety, stress, these were words that we didn't really talk about when it came to children. I look at my nephew, because we already discussed, Riley's pretty excited about school. Cooper has no idea what he's getting into. But when I asked my nephew this weekend if he was excited about school, his first response was, no, I hate school. I wish I would have asked more questions in that situation. But how can you in your professional opinion, thank you, Brittany.
Well, I feel like you're struggling. You're
how can you, in your professional opinion, kind of help parents streamline that conversation to figure out if this is a stressor or deeper?
I think that is such a poignant example of what the challenge is, because I think sometimes when people talk about potentially concerning anxiety or fear that children have about school. All the advice is about how to help them not be anxious. And there are skills, and I'll talk about that. But the first thing is, what are they afraid of? Mm-hmm. Right? What is going on? Kids are smart and complicated, right? Mm-hmm. And so understanding in your situation that there was an area that you felt, you couldn't do well, and it made you scared of being sort of found out. It could be that there's a bully in the classroom. Mm-hmm. It could be that, they're all different things. So I think part of it is, I think our initial instinct as parents is to reassure our children. Oh no, it's going to be okay. Don't worry. We'll remember Susie's in your class. And I think one of the skills we can learn as parents is to really actively listen mm-hmm. and make space with questions, not to jump in with a solution. Right. And I think that can be hard, right? And it's not that we can't help kids have skills and ways to manage things, but the place to begin is to be curious. That's mm-hmm. the way, to be curious and not judgmental about, tell me about that. Wow, it sounds like you don't like school. Is there something that's going on or something like that? Or like with littler kids, sometimes it can be drawing. It can be imaginary play. So it doesn't just have to be a conversation. It could be learning in the other kinds of ways that we engage with our kids.
Really validate their fears. And I was looking at you like that because we've had the conversation as adults. Ryan's first instinct is to fix. He wants everyone to be happy. So he wants to fix the solution, and he's coming from a good space. But we've had this conversation multiple times. Effective. It's just, sometimes you need to meet them at their emotions before you find the solution. Otherwise they're not feeling validated in those fears, right? You don't want to dismiss them.
And I think there's another piece of that. And Ryan, I relate to you. I think we all do this, mm-hmm. right? We don't want people to feel pain or to suffer. That's a very natural feeling. But I think the other advantage of making space for feelings is to show that you're not scared that your child is having negative feelings, right? That it's like, this is okay. As we say, all feelings are okay, not all behaviors. Mm-hmm. So it's really about acknowledging it's okay to have feelings like sadness and fear and anger. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to try to make that go away because I can't tolerate you being upset in some way. So there's something very powerful, again, about listening. Mm-hmm.
I feel like, when Riley first started school, I remember, and I wonder, I'm very curious if Cooper is going to do the same thing. So she would go to school, and we were lucky she had about a year and a half before the pandemic hit. And her teachers raved about her. She was amazing. And she'd get home and she would literally barf out all of her emotions. She would have tantrums. And Cooper does that a little bit from preschool and daycare, but I would rather them be attentive and listening and then feel safe in the home to feel all of those emotions. But when does it become, again, I know there isn't a timeline to put on if your kid isn't over it by 2 weeks, then you should look into it. But is there something around where you notice that these feelings aren't going away? Yeah. Is there a time? Okay.
Definitely. So first of all, you really beautifully described something that is so appropriate for kids, right? It takes a lot of energy to hold it together at school, to follow directions, to keep your emotions in check. And it's really exhausting. Yeah. And so exactly as you were attuned to, you understood that your daughter was coming home and felt safe to let her guard down and not have to be so competent, right? And that is something that is very, very common, particularly at the beginning. And I think it's so great that you were empathetic to that rather than just thinking of that as a problem.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if we were empathetic at the beginning.
We were
I think
what
it
is
took us
happening?
time to figure out.
Absolutely.
Because we're something's wrong with Riley.
Yeah. But I mean, but half of parenting is like learning and adapting as you go.
Sure. And part of that is knowing what's going on in school, right? I mean, so a question would be, wow, she's, having difficulty holding it together at home. Are we seeing this is happening in school? Like, no, she's doing great. Okay. So then we, think about the behavior a little bit differently.
Right.
But when this is an essential question. And as I said, I frame it as when to worry. When are a child's anxiety or fears of school more than back to school jitters?
Right.
And it actually, time frame is helpful. It's not hard and fast.
Sure.
But if after 2 weeks and certainly after a month, you're not seeing things getting any better, that actually is a sign that maybe there's something else going on.
Okay.
The other thing is to look at the areas of how afraid or anxious your child is before school, right? How difficult your goodbyes are, right? So whether if you're doing the drop off, is your child really upset, clinging to you, crying, and is that not getting better? So that would be something. And then when your child comes home, are they talking about school, or when they're going to bed, they're having trouble settling down because these worries and fears are on their mind because they're already thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to go back and do that again. So there we're talking about something that's lasting longer, that is more intense and is pervasive over, all different activities that your child is going through. And then I think often we will see that it will go along with things like changes in your child's eating or sleeping, right? It's interfering with being able to fall asleep or stay asleep. Is your child able to joyfully, engage in the things that she loves? Or are these anxieties and worries really seeping into everything and affecting, her overall mood or her overall feeling? So, and one of the big ways that I think we distinguish is, and our medical term is how impairing is it? But let me translate that. How is it impacting your child, right? Is it impacting being able to go to school or stay to school? Because remember, a lot of kids who have clinically significant anxiety will get tummy aches and headaches or other aches and pains either before school or during school, where you're getting called by the school nurse. And your child's like, I have to be picked up and things like that. And so, it's very important to see, is it impacting your child's development? Also, is it impacting your family in an adverse way? So let's say it's been 2 weeks. Every morning is just a complete disaster. And everybody's in tears. You're just, by the time you get out the door, you are just ready to lie down. Everybody is, and just give up for the day. Every time you drop your child off, you have to peel him off your leg and, with tears in your eyes, push your child to the school. If that's not getting better, that's painful for you. It's painful for your child. And that, there's so many ways that we can help to give you as a parent skills to support your anxious child and teach your child different skills that will be helpful.
So Little Otter, you said that you have, so it's really family therapy, psychology. Is there options for parents to maybe have like Zoom chats and stuff with not only parents, but also a child? Because I wonder, we talk about fears, like you were scared because you didn't feel like you were going to be exposed. You didn't know how to learn. And
I didn't know I had that fear.
No, for sure.
Of course you didn't. Right.
But like, I think sometimes it's a lot of the time, I think it's hard for a child to admit those things maybe to their parents. And it might be easier to talk to somebody without that bias, without that kind of lingering whatever.
Absolutely. And someone who's trained to work with children. So the way Little Otter works is, family comes in and they do what we call a welcome call, where we,
Right.
figure out what the key thing is going on. The other thing before the welcome call, when you registered, I've made this questionnaire called the Child and Family Mental Health Checkup. And here's the important thing. We have checkups for our child's height and their
Right.
weight, but we don't have a checkup that says, how's my child doing developmentally in their social, emotional, behavioral areas, so that families fill this out. And it's about the child's mental health, it's about parent mental health, and then it's about stresses in the family. And they immediately get a report that says, is this typical or is this concerning? And we give some actionable insights. So at the welcome call, the welcome call provider will talk about this, and then we make a decision based on that. Do you need to go to a therapist to have an actual mental health evaluation, which always includes the child and the parents? You never just talk to the parents. Or is this a more typical challenge that you could work with a parenting specialist, learning some approaches, like if it's temper tantrum or bedtime routines that are developmentally normal, but also causing a lot of stress in the family.
That's so
I
perfect.
think what's critical about our family approach, it's not necessarily family therapy. It's really saying a child's mental health is impacted by everything going on in the family. And if we're going to support a child's mental health, yes, we have direct ways. We have wonderful treatments to help children who are anxious or depressed or have other challenges. And if a mom or a dad is depressed, we really want to support that parent to get the help that they need, because that's going to have a huge impact on the child's mental health. We do couples counseling also, because if a couple is in a lot of conflict, that's going to have a negative impact on the child's mental health. So I'd say that our key point of view is it's always about the whole family and all the relationships. And we never just want to focus only on the kid. So
I'm curious about this. So I'd love your opinion on it, being in the field. We're now 2.5 years post beginning of COVID lockdown here in North America.
Yeah.
Which is the lion's share of the people that listen to this podcast are in North America. You're now starting to see the first wave of children who were early developing like language skills, who were
Social skills,
immediately cut off from society. You're now seeing that group enter into kindergarten.
Yep.
And you've seen over the last 2.5 years a significant amount of kids who were in kindergarten that are now working their way into grade 3, which is Riley, who are impacted by this. Because in those early stages of school, as far as I'm concerned, the number one priority of all kids should be learning how to socialize.
Yep.
All of the other skill sets are going to come eventually. Everyone learns at a different pace, but how to socialize is such a key element to the success of a child's educational process, right? As far as I'm concerned. Have you seen a significant increase in stress and anxiety in children as a result of, taking kids away from society and then trying to put them back in, and then masks and no masks?
So chopped up.
It's a super important question. So I'm going to pull the lens back a little bit and say, even before the pandemic, we were in a child mental health crisis. And so you're talking even about littler kids. Again, this is my work. Young children have the same rate of impairing mental health challenges as older kids. It's about 15% of children. So we already had a problem with kids not being identified and not getting treatment. And then the pandemic happened, and it's gotten so much worse. And I want to be clear. I agree with you. I think the isolation, not having the socialization, has had a significant impact. But it's also the fact that families have been under incredible stress. Parents, were all of a sudden homeschooling, trying to work at the same time. People have faced illness and losses of family members. due to COVID. So it's been, I think, a combination of stressors. There's been an increase in domestic violence, for example, so that a family that is stressed, put under more stress and isolated, that can have a really negative impact. So we certainly are seeing an impact on children's anxiety, on depression, on eating disorders, interestingly, and also in terms of more broadly social emotional development and social skills. So we did a study at Little Otter a year ago, and 80% of the children, these were 2 to 12 years old, were in the clinically concerning range for anxiety, and 60% for social skills problems. Number two, 50% of the parents screened positive on a clinical screen for anxiety, and a quarter screened positive for depression.
Wow.
So that we definitely have a mental health crisis that's impacting children. It's impacting adults. And important to remember, it's impacting the adults who are teaching and caring for our children at school, right? And so this is, and so I think that is why, so two things I would say at Little Otter. Number one, if I could wave a magic wand to change something in the world, I would say every child who's at school or at the pediatrician should take our checkup. That there should be universal screening. So you're not just asking as a parent, is this a problem? Do I know that you're proactively saying, just like following my child's height and weight, I'm going to track my child's social emotional development so I can identify as early as possible if there's a problem and get
baseline
help.
it. Yeah.
Baseline, right? And because things change. But then the other thing, and I'm super, super thrilled and excited to share this, is we announced a new offering at Little Otter on Monday, and it's called the Kelp Line, which we say is Otter for help. That's why it's Kelp. And why the name Kelp? It's because otters wrap their babies in kelp so they don't float away. And otters wrap themselves in kelp when they're sleeping. They hold hands. And so it's a way of connection in the otter band. But what the Kelp Line is a subscription for parents to be able to text a licensed professional at Little Otter. Soon the hours are going to be, in the East Coast from 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. with questions, with concerns, like in real time. I mean, so it could be you drop your child off at preschool and it's just, again, it's the peeling your kid off and you're just in tears about it. You can say, hey, this happened. Can you give me some advice? And so then we can share resources and other things. And we can also say, yeah, based on your checkup, because they also do the checkup, it does seem that this might be something that we should look more closely at. And so then we can schedule a welcome call and an assessment. So I'm just super excited to develop something for parents that you can use in real time. And that you can use without some big planning, like I'm going to talk to my pediatrician. Oh my God, does my child have depression? It's just more like, help. Yeah. I feel alone. I feel confused. And then we can be there to provide that support with other resources or reassurance.
Which is
right. I mean, how awesome being like, okay, this is hard, but not surprising.
Yeah. And I think that the idea that it's so accessible in real time is huge, because I feel like a parent will be like, you know what, it's another thing. I got to check it with my pediatrician. I'll go here. And then they just kind of, tuck it away. And they're like, you know what, it'll work itself out. And then that's when it starts to compound. So that's amazing. That's so awesome. Can you just give our community and our audience a little, if you have socials, what's the website? How do they find you? How do they look so that we can?
Absolutely. So we are our website is littleotterhealth.com. Okay. And so you can find us there, and it has the links, to our Instagram and our Twitter. Our Instagram is very active, and we post, a lot of actionable insights for parents. One thing to say is we have lots of great resources on our website that aren't behind a paywall that you can
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Google
that.
things and ask questions. And I know I am so excited about coming to Canada, as I told you, because we love Canada. But the exciting thing about the Kelp Line is it's actually our first national offering. So we're providing mental health services in almost 15 states now, and will be national next year. But now we have an offering for every single family. And so if they go to the website, they can learn more about the Kelp Line and sign up. And again, it's a subscription, so it's $29.99 a month. And you get the mental health checkup. And we repeat the checkup also. That's, as you were saying, Ryan, it's a baseline.
Yeah.
And then you follow it over time and see what's going on.
As a former concussion case, I know all about baselines when it comes to injuries.
Exactly.
You know, you, the conversation you had and the statistics that you read, shocking, but understandable. If you say 50% of all adults are at that level of anxiety, that typically means either the husband or the wife, the mom or the dad. And if you say 80% of children, it kind of makes sense that every household has a serious amount of stress and anxiety going on, and the children are feeling it. And then add to that, they're going back to school and experiencing all these new things. So I don't think I've ever given my children the amount of credit they probably need when it comes to this transition that's happening.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think we're going to dig a little bit deeper into this year. And really, what I got from what you said and what you shared is ask way more questions.
Make space for it.
Absolutely. And I think the last thing I'll say is trust your instincts as a parent. I believe, this is my personal experience, but from working with families, that parents actually know when there's something going on that is a little bit different. And sometimes people will reassure them, wait and see. Don't wait and see. And so I would really encourage parents to think about your child's emotional health, their social health, their mental health in that same way, that the sooner we identify it, the more we can give support and skills so they can go back to being kids and thrive.
Thank you so much, Helen, for this. Truly appreciate your insight.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun. And, you know, the work that you all are doing to support families is part of what we're all trying to do to support families in these hard times.
Awesome. Okay, well, have yourself a wonderful day, and I'm sure we will be speaking with you sooner rather than later.
There goes a sight from my soul.